Hi guys, the Tories are just assuming everyone is stupid at this stage, that the public doesn't understand reality. This has to be the conclusion of the interview Michael Tomlinson, the illegal migration minister, gave to Trevor Philips on Sunday morning. GDP per capita, which is how things are improving for every individual on average in the UK, has been negative since the middle of 2022. Things were not great before that, as you'll see, but it means that since Rishi Sunak has been in charge, people are literally worse off. The minister tried to spin this about inflation, but in order to bring down inflation, a recession was necessary. So to achieve their goal of lower inflation, ordinary people had to suffer. This had been predicted, but yet is spun as a win. Have a listen.
Despite that, we've ensured that we've got inflation down from 11.1% to 4%. I speak to Trevor, I speak to my colleagues all the time. I speak to them whether they're on the right, whether they're in the centre. We're all part of the same party. And it's by evidence. It's by evidencing the progress that we have made and that we are continuing to make.
If I may say so, can we actually look at the evidence? You probably can't see it, but I'm going to show a chart here which shows per capita economic growth over the past 7 quarters, all negative. Every person in this country, on average, has been getting poorer. What's great about that?
The single biggest block to economic growth is inflation. And as I've said, we've seen inflation falling.
No, but you've just been telling me that this is a kind of improving picture. Just deal with the 7 quarters of negative economic growth per capita.
In terms of growth, the single biggest block to economic growth is inflation. Inflation is falling in line with our plan. And actually, if you look at forecasts, if you look at the IMF, if you look at the OBR, the OECD, if you look at the Bank of England, all forecasting growth, and the IMF forecasting that we'll grow faster than France, faster than Germany, Italy and Japan. Trevor, let me tell you this as well. What single biggest thing can we do? We can do tax cuts for businesses. The 11 billion package that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor delivered, that will increase jobs and increase growth as well.
Oh, more tax cuts coming.
Well, that's a matter for the Chancellor. That's not a matter for me. There'll be a budget, and you'll see that on the 6th of March, and that's a matter for him.
You'd be happy to see that, would you?
Yes, of course I would. All Conservatives would. As I said, a tax cut for businesses means encouraging growth and encouraging prosperity for our country.
My goodness, okay. We saw it before when it came to tax cuts. Tax cuts will not drive growth. Now, he talked here about inflation and how inflation is blocking growth. But in order to bring down inflation, of course, he was never asked, and that's a big problem. I keep asking this question, why don't journalists actually ask ministers and the Prime Minister, what are you doing? Point to a policy that is bringing down inflation. They won't, because it's not under their control. But there is a recession which is bringing down inflation. So Rishi Sunak has this ridiculous plan of having inflation and growing the economy. But in order to have inflation, it seems, well, a recession is necessary, and a recession is the opposite of growing the economy. Those two things seem to be in conflict. Now, they don't necessarily have to be, but what's happening at the moment is causing a recession. Brexit, the cost of living, lack of investment, the ending of freedom of movement, which results in businesses not investment being attracted to Britain as before, businesses not being able to expand because they can't access workers, things like that. So these things are a drag on the economy, and this is bringing down inflation. Now, there are other factors. The price of energy has dropped since the war in Ukraine. So this is bringing down inflation as well. So these are factors that are outside the control. But once again, journalists need to ask the Prime Minister and his ministers, what are you doing specifically that is bringing down inflation? They can't answer that because there's nothing. It's out of their control. In the same way that Rishi Sunak said, there's nothing to do with us when inflation was above 11%. But this idea that tax cuts will drive growth is insane, because tax cuts means that the government has less money available, less money to invest. So if you have less money to invest, how are you going to grow the economy? So if the economy is booming and there's more money coming in, then the government can reinvest that money in public services. They can attract investment. I said before, for example, if you build a new airport, a new train station or network or a hub or something like that, if you boost funding for universities so they can attract the greatest minds, they can invest in new technologies and new ways of doing things, this will attract private investment. This will create jobs. This will grow the economy. The Tories are doing the opposite. And they're thinking, well, this, of course, is the far right within the Conservative Party. If we cut taxes, this will result in growth. I don't think they're that stupid. This is just a political move. We need to cut taxes for our donors. We need to cut taxes for the companies, the corrupt companies that donate to the Conservative Party or have some sort of connection to the Conservative Party. It's all about enriching our friends and donors. The same with Brexit, cutting regulations in order to allow corrupt companies to get one over workers, to get one over on the environment, all of these things. These people do not care about economic growth. This is about, we're near the end, we're going to be removed from office, let's deliver a sweetener to our friends and donors before we go. And that's, of course, tax cuts. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.